Hello everyone, my name is David Bellino. Today we're talking about mental performance. What is it? Why does it matter? And are sports psychology and mental performance the same? Let's find out. Let's begin by identifying what mental performance is. And rather than give you a dictionary definition, I'll give you a few examples and let you define it on your own. For me, the most obvious examples of mental performance come from sport. We think about playing under intense pressure and choking under pressure. These are mental performance examples. A basketball player misses free throws in overtime. A soccer player blasts a penalty kick over the bar. A golfer loses a 6-stroke lead on the last day. And each of these examples shows that there's both a physical component and a mental component to these activities. Now, the opposite of choking under pressure is rising to the occasion. And we could see this perhaps in a baseball player who goes 4 for 4 in back-to-back playoff games, or a hockey goalie who keeps a clean sheet in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals. And I would imagine that most people have, if not experienced, at least witnessed someone who's either risen to the occasion or choked under pressure. And this shows that there's both a physical and a mental component to sports, and each of these can be trained and improved over time. Now, obviously, those are some extreme examples of mental performance, and there's many, many others. The responsibility of a mental performance consultant is to cultivate the skills necessary to master the mental side of the performance. Now, this sounds a lot like sports psychology, and some people might ask, well, are mental performance and sports psychology the same? And the answer to that is yes and no. Now, the most important distinguishing factor between sports psychology and mental performance is the title. The title that's recognized by ASP, which is the governing body for sports psychology here in the United States, or the Association for Applied Sports Psychology, they hand out a certification that's called the CMPC, which stands for the Certification for Mental Performance Consultants. And that's where it seems a little confusing, because the organization is called sports psychology and the certification is called mental performance consultant. And that certification was actually just recognized earlier this year by the NCCA, which is an important step for sports psychology and mental performance consultants. Now, if you checked out my other video on mental performance, you'll know that there's a divide between sports psychology and mental performance. On the sports psychology side, we have psychological disorders. And on the mental performance side, we have no disorders. So when we think about the title, Certified Mental Performance Consultant or Psychologist, the divide is that disorder, psychologist. No disorder, mental performance consultant. So if we only look at the titles, then we would have to say that mental performance and sports psychology are not the same. Now, I'm guessing here, but I would say that the majority of mental performance consultants have their master's in sports psychology. And I fall under this category, so even though my diploma says master's in sports psychology, here in the United States, I'm not legally allowed to use the word psychology or psychologist in my title. Now, it's a little confusing because the majority of books, research articles, magazine articles, and even social media posts will use the term sports psychology and not mental performance, which is a little confusing because they don't have anything to do with psychological disorders. And for this reason, I would say that the science of sports psychology and mental performance are the same, even if the titles are different. So we might have players, coaches, performers, people that are interested in sports psychology and want to improve their mental game, but not understand that the title is not sports psychologist. I also mentioned in my last video that there's a number of other titles that are used, so there isn't just one accepted title, and that makes it even more confusing. And it also allows space for fakers and posers to come in. Now, one of the best things about the CMPC certification is that it's a rigorous process to be certified. You need advanced education, you need log supervised hours, and you also need to pass an exam, so this helps to at least to keep out some of the fakers and the posers. I'm actually applying for CMPC myself right now, and I'd be glad to help out in upcoming videos with more details about that process. Now, as I mentioned, the science of mental performance and sports psychology are pretty much the same, but we don't use the term mental performance quite as often as we use the term sports psychology. So perhaps we've heard something like, this player has a psychological advantage, or this player is getting psyched up before the game, or this team's lack of playoff experience puts them at a psychological disadvantage, or this player won a psychological battle. So we use the term psychology quite often, but mental performance not quite so much. Now, the word psychology is already wired into our brains, and it's in our collective vocabulary. So I don't think we're ever going to totally refrain from using it, but because the accepted title is mental performance consultant, I think it's only fair that we educate players, coaches, and performers who might want to improve in their mental game but don't have a psychological disorder what the accepted title is. I honestly think that there are a number of people who would benefit from the services of a mental performance consultant, but who might not be familiar with that title and therefore don't know how to connect with us. And one of the reasons I want to build this identity is to further strengthen that connection. I hope I brought some clarity to the mental performance and sports psychology puzzle today. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next time.